Good morning. Welcome to Business Lens on Rapid TV. I am Faith Daffy Joseph, and as usual, we get to go through all the headlines making the rounds in the world of business, finance, and the economy, looking at the governor of the central bank, as Edwin Cardoso, and Governor Cardoso and the Finance Minister, Wale Adun. They have promised to strengthen fiscal monetary partnership between both of them. Of course, this is something that we have been looking forward to for a long time. So it is great that it is going to happen. And then we also have the federal government decrying low agricultural export earnings, saying this is below $400 million despite major GDP contribution. We're going to talk about that as well during the show today. And then we also get to talk about what is going on with European refineries, where you have a number of European refineries decrying the fact that, well, now they have low output and they're struggling. Refineries in Europe are struggling because of Dangote ramping up output. All right. And then also the federal government is decrying the $10 million import bill for agriculture, and food imports, saying that it is too much. So we're going to talk about all of that on the show today. Later on, we get to look at Norman Berger's report for H1, and then that is the further discussion on the other side of the hour. But for now, let me bring in my analyst who's going to help us unpack some of these headlines that we have looked at just now. And that's talking about Mr. Abiola Adekunle from Key to Markets. Good to have you, as always.
Good to be here, Faith.
Okay, so let us start with talking about what's going on with European refineries, right? So they are, well, complaining. They struggle. Dangote is ramping up output. We know that Dangote refineries might get to the point where we have over the 600,000 capacity, 650,000 capacity that was said to be the original for him. Yeah. And what is very interesting also is that before now, we used to have West Africa take about 285,000 barrels per day from European refineries. That has dropped to 1/3 of that. Okay, that's basically what's happening. Nigeria is taking 1 in 5. Now Nigeria is taking 1 in 10. So a lot of European refineries are struggling. Is it supposed to be expected? We have seen different reports about this before.
Yeah, I think we're just starting. I remember a video, I think last 3 years, in a particular country in, I think, Asia. And the lady was in a bus, and somebody asked, it was like a tour guide, and somebody asked her, what are the natural resources that you guys have? And she pointed to her head that, oh, it's our brain. We don't have any natural resources. We refine other people's crude oil. We send it back. We sell. We do all that. And all I could think of is, if Africa can get it right, a lot of these narratives will change. And this is like the beginning of the beginning, because we've not gone anywhere. And, they're already starting to say all this. I feel that we will still get even better at this, because what Dangote has done, or what Dangote is doing, is actually to open the way. This is not the final season. This is season 1, or this is so it's not as if I'm happy or whatever is going on. But like Trump, I would rather be a patriotic Nigerian, than support, because this is my country. So I'm happy that Dangote is doing well, and I'm also looking forward to other companies that will come up in the future, seeing that, oh, there's actually a pathway here, and this can actually be successful to now start. They might not be at the level of Dangote, but they could also now say, okay, let me venture into this business and also do mine. So Europe has been supplying Africa for years, for decades, and you really don't hear much complaint. So now that the table seems to seem as if it is turned, even though it has not turned, it just moved a little, we are hearing this complaint. I think we are going to have more of this, but Dangote should also be ready, okay, for some pushback. Because if you remember, when a particular airline from Nigeria started flying directly to UK, there was some level of pushback. So it's now get to a point that it might be government support versus government support, even though these are private enterprises.
I mean, remember that there was a time that when Dangote was complaining about being able to source for crude from producers here in Nigeria, and that's talking about most of these producers that their headquarters are in Europe.
Yes.
And, he was talking about like an over $4 markup, you know, on a barrel of crude, and
Which was
you
a
know
lot.
which is a lot. I mean, by the time you multiply it across several
Yes.
thousands, so that was some sort of push back then. You know, well, if you don't get your crude stock, how
Exactly.
you
It's
going
just- it's
to
just
how
like-
you going to refine?
Exactly. It's just like frustrating the efforts of I can say that even much more than what Dangote is saying, I think he has gone through much more than whatever he's saying. So if he's having this breath of fresh air in a way, I think as far as it's beneficial to Nigeria, for me it is fine. Speaking of 4 naira and 2 naira and all that, I remember when I started, you know, hearing about crude oil. I think that was 10 or 11 years ago. And I keep hearing people talk about 50 kobo, 20 kobo. Like, what business are you doing that I'm mentioning 20 kobo? What does 20 kobo has to do with it? But by the time you multiply it by millions
Exactly.
of liters, then
It
you
adds up.
understand. Yes.
Well, talking about exports and imports, let's talk about agriculture. Well, so we have the Nigerian, you know, agriculture minister. He's talking about the fact that Nigeria has an unsustainable $10 billion annual food import expenditure, saying that we're spending so much to import food, and then if you put it side by side, you know, what we are supposed to be doing for agriculture, we're not even close. If you're looking at agriculture's contribution to our FX earnings, it's less than $400 million, you know, and then you're looking at the fact that, you know, agriculture is about 35% of our GDP, but it's not contributing as much when you look at, you know, money, but then you look at what we spend to import food. So you are making less than $400 million, but you're spending over 10 billion to bring in food.
First of all, I'm happy that our Greek minister is picking up, because I remember in past administration, there were other ministers that were speaking on behalf of Agric in the country. In fact, they even took up the roles of the Agric minister. But now, thank God, at least he's speaking up. We know we have an agricultural minister. The first thing I would like to say about imports is it is not it is not an average Nigerian's will to see an alternative that is cheaper and available and say, no, this is the one I want. So first of all, I think it is lack of local alternative to some of these goods that makes Nigeria demand for imported substitutes. That's one. Two, some of the things that we have locally, for example, if you talk about tomatoes, for example, now, it is like this. Most of the prices are like this. In season is low, out of season is extreme.
So we've not been able to solve that
Yeah, we've
seasonal
not been able to solve
issue.
that seasonal issue, meaning that the value chain is still very problematic. Now, since the value chain is problematic, there is a source that keeps giving us constant and consistent pricing, okay, which is imported. And having now, okay, let me go with what I know that is constant. I can always get so sachet for this amount because it's imported. Fine. It's not as if we love imported stuff. I would rather prefer local, because local is fresh, and we don't even know what additives, what chemicals have been used to preserve whatever is coming in. Look at apples, for example. Some apples, when you pick them up, the wax is still on the body that if you don't take your knife to really peel it, you won't know that it exists. So for the Agric minister, I think the step in the right direction is not to re-announce the problems. I think all of us know the problems. What we now need is, what are the solutions you are bringing to the table? Nigerians, these are the things I want to do in the next 2 years, 4 years. Please work with me so that at the end of the day, we can reduce this huge amount we're spending on importing food, which is also pressurizing our local exchange rate, and at the end of the day, source for local alternative, which also frees up our FX.
I mean, the difference, the discrepancy is a lot,
It's
right?
a lot, 400 to...
You're earning less than $400 million, but you're spending
10 billion,
10 billion to bring in food. You know, and this is not because you do not have land. This is not because you do not have people who want to farm. Agricultural sector already employs about 35% of the population. So what it means is that workforce is not necessarily your biggest challenge. So
No.
what is the biggest challenge really? Is it about the value chain when you look at whether it's storage, transportation, processing? Is that where the missing link is?
The biggest challenge is quite a number of things, but I'll mention three. Number one is security. If farmers cannot farm, where do we begin? It's a no-brainer. Okay. Number two is mechanization. You have 35% employed doing what? Doing it primitively. A man, or let me say, a man can with a tractor farm 10 hectares of land okay, for farming, you know, run it consistent, just a man. But when you don't mechanize, when you go by the, you know, the primitive way, then that same 10 hectares can be farmed by, let's say, 300 persons, okay, because 10 hectares is a whole lot. 1 hectare contains like 10 plots. That is the second thing. We need to really mechanize, because the world has gone beyond somebody using, you know, primitive what's it called, farm stuff. It's not going to work in 2025. Then number three is the value chain. Truly, we produce some of the best items in Africa and in the world. Look at our ginger from Southern Kaduna. It's been rated as like top three, you know, only behind China and I think India. But now, even though something like ginger can be preserved easily, something like tomato, pepper, onions cannot. Yam. So what happens is there's a large harvest. Then when it's off season, there's practically nothing. You see a point in time, yam can become 5,000 for one, and at the point in time, you'll be buying that same 5,000 naira worth of yam. You'll be buying like maybe 5 or 6. So the value chain also has to come correct. But what are the challenges of value chain? Good roads. First of all, the good roads are not there. Okay, there's a lot of produce in the farm. How do I bring it to the urban center where I'll preserve it? Number two is there's no power. Some of these things need power to hold them and preserve them till they'll be consumed. But it cannot be guaranteed. And when you want to guarantee it with diesel, it takes all your profit away. So I don't want to go to because it's a whole lot. But three of them is what I just mentioned.
What about processing?
It's still
Do we
value
have,
chain.
is this
still
the value chain?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about this. The federal government has just approved a new medium-term debt strategy, and is now setting 60% debt to GDP ceiling by 2027. Sometimes, of course, you look at these figures and you're like, okay, it feels like, you know, our government is, they're very optimistic, you know, when they set their target or when they use, you know, when they have their assumptions, and sometimes you're like, sometimes you're like, okay, so this sounds good, but is it something that is sustainable? Now, under this, let me just give you the highlight of what they intend to do. So under this, debt to GDP ratio is projected to rise, you know, to 60% by 2027. But one other thing that they're trying to do is to cap interest payments to GDP to 4.5%. At this point, it was 3.75% in 2024. So giving themselves a bit of wiggle room, which is good. They also want an average time of maturity to be increased to an average of 10 years. So there's a lot more time to, you know, sort of like wriggle around. And then there's also foreign exchange debt exposure to be reduced. FX debt, they not want it to be at 45%, you know, instead, which is down from the current 51.7%. So another thing that they're looking to do is to make sure that there's domestic to external debt mix, make sure that domestic debt is higher than foreign debts. Of course, that also helps you with your FX. So if domestic debt is reduced to a 48.52 ratio instead of what you have at 55.45%, it reduces your FX exposure as well. So these are the projections that they're having. But as you're having this sort of talk, you also look at what our debt stock is talking about right now. And, you know, are these projections supposed to sort of override that, or what? I mean, what do you think about this projections?
Well, the thing that amuses me when government says some of these things, it always goes back to CBN, for example, when we talk about NPR and you're looking at the effect on inflation, and you say, okay, if we are going to increase the interest rates, is it going to reduce inflation? And you increase it and it doesn't reduce it, and you keep increasing it. Okay, so it's the same thing I want to, you know, bring into this. It was saying the reality, right? And the reality does not support your projections. Then it means that there has to be a lot of work to merge the reality into what your projections are. All these projections that have been given are fantastic. They are good.
Supposed to help reassure investors.
Yeah, reassurance without substance might be a tricky thing, because I can tell you right now, Faith, that I'm a billionaire, and because of that, you know, I want to buy 50% of Rapid TV. Oh, welcome billionaire and all that, but at the end of the day, when it's time for me to now substantiate that billionaire, and they see that, oh, this guy is not even a thousandaire, then it becomes a problem. So it's good that the government is pushing out this projection and is being very optimistic I like it because that is the way to go. But now, are they going to put in the work to bridge what is realistically on
But
ground?
there's more wiggle room now if you look at it. So they're giving themselves a 10 years,
What are we
10
doing?
years moratorium, so they don't have to worry about maturity for 10
Some are
years. They
maturing
are.
that have been projected and been pushed back. See, 10 years seems like a very long time. 10 years ago was what, 2015? I remember vividly what I was doing in 2015. So I'm not saying that 10 years is not a long time, it's a long time. But if the long time is there and you are not putting in the work to bridge the gap, then at the end of the day, what I know that they are trying to reduce foreign loans, increase.
Exactly.
I agree with all these steps, right? So let's see it in action. Gone are the days when we also PowerPoint presentations and all those things. Beyond that, now let us start seeing the work. So it's a fantastic idea, it's a good projection, but can we put in the work to deliver this?
I mean, we know that currently our debt is almost at 100 billion USD, and over that's about 142 trillion naira. That's basically what our debt. Well, 149 trillion.
Yeah.
That's where our debt stock stands currently, and we know that there's still probably going to be some borrowing as we go along because we need to finance things.
For comparison, that is like, give or take, like 10 years budget. If you look at the progression of our budget, like 10 years, if no more, that's 149 trillion naira.
But they're saying that, well, there's a lot of wiggle room now, trying to make sure that, you know, when you look at your debts to your GDP ratio, you're not strangulated, and then trying to adjust the policy.
And with the government, let's try all we can to actually be able to deliver this. But like you said, it's an optimistic and projection. But let's see.
I think the one that's very interesting for me is they trying to, you know, make sure that they say domestic to external debt mix, making sure that we have more domestic debts than foreign debt. That will also help us in conserving our FX earnings. And maybe
not on the surface. Sorry to cut you. If you look at the domestic borrowings, what exactly are the components? And when you look at foreign borrowings, what are the components? For example, you could have foreign borrowing that say, okay, give us at 4% per annum, 5% per annum, 6% per annum, and give us a moratorium, give us 10 years and all that. And you could come locally and you start seeing double digits. So in as much as you want
payments.
you want to increase the local borrowings, at what cost compared to the foreign borrowing? So sometimes something sounds very good on paper, it sounds patriotic on paper, but it is counterproductive when you look at it in depth.
I guess you have to look at the difference of the FX.
Yes.
And then look at the difference of the interest rate and put them
and
side
see
by side.
Which one, yes. So they have to look at all the components and see. And if at the end of the local borrowings win, please let's have it.
But not just project it and say,
not just project it, but I'm sure also that they would have
they probably crunched their numbers already.
Yes, they would have crunched the numbers. Let's keep crunching and see where we get.
Meanwhile, you have the governor of the central bank and the finance minister, coordinating minister of the economy, saying they are going to work better together now.
Now we are talking.
But I'm wondering, why is it news? Why are they just saying it now? Aren't they supposed to be working together normally? Why is it something that you're telling us now?
If they've been working together normally, like in depth, I don't think they will come out and say it publicly, oh, now we want to work together publicly, much more. But I think it's a good one for monetary and fiscal policies to shake hands and for us to be able to now see how do we assist each other in order to achieve the same goal. Because at the end of the day, it's different sides of the same coin. Let us get Nigeria out of wherever we are into where we were maybe 10, 15 years ago.
I mean, so hopefully after this conversation, we will not have the MPC report telling us, oh, you know what, the fiscal side just needs to do their own. We're doing our
something
part.
like phone call
because usually they always put that in the report.
Yeah, they should be best of friends.
Communicate.
You know, Wale Edu and the CBN governor should be best of friends. Like, these guys are the ones handling the finances of the country. We shouldn't be reading about your matter on the pages of the newspaper. You guys should be talking in depth internally, so that we'll just be seeing the effect and be like, wow, these guys are doing a lot of work.
Okay, and that's our wrap up the headline part of the show for today. Thank you so much, Mr. Abiola, as always. On the other side of the hour, we get to talk to a researcher from Nuremberg as we look at, look back on H1 for 2025, and of course projections, for second half of the year. Stay with Business Lens on Rapid TV.